Welcome to Pounding the Meat podcast. Oh man, tonight's going to be a packed show. We're going to talk about wrestling. We're going to talk about art. It's going to be pure nostalgia. We've got two really special guests tonight who bring kind of their own unique perspectives when we talk about a really cool wrestling magazine, Big Shot Buddies. First, we're going to have my good friend and talented comic artist from Canada, Dyl Kloepfer. He's here to introduce his latest project, the Old-Timey Wrestling Magazine. It's a really kind of creative ode to the golden era, the golden days of wrestling, capturing grit and humor and the heart of the ring like never before. Really cool stuff. Now, speaking of wrestling nostalgia, I can't help but think back to those WWF buddies, right? By Tonka. We're going to dive into that in a little bit. The ones that we all had when we were kids, man. Those original wrestling companions that we just beat the crap out of in our living rooms and our parents' bedrooms. Man, the passion for wrestling, for me, that's where it all started. And then adding to the excitement of tonight's show, we are going to have Adam Alson, the partner at the 500 level and founder of Big Shots and Big League Pillows. Adam's brands have brought fans closer to their heroes with products that are unique as they are iconic. And we'll be talking about his journey, the art of brand building, and the stories behind these fan favorite ventures. So whether you are here for the wrestling memories, the art, or the entrepreneurial insights from Adam, get ready for, I think, an unforgettable show. Grab a snack, grab a drink, settle in. Let's dive deep into the world of wrestling and fandom. First up tonight, I want to bring on my good friend, Dyl Kloepfer. Dylan, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Very excited.
Welcome to Pounding the Meat.
Obviously a fan of the podcast. I mean, I have an in with it, so how could I not watch, right?
And you've been watching our show for quite some time, Dylan, and we thank you for being a fan of the show, and it's great to have you on Pounding the Meat. Usually we're live on Thursdays, but tonight it's a special night. We're live on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock, but so happy to have you, bro.
Thanks, man, and happy that you're part of the project as well. You should toot your own horn.
I don't want to toot my own horn for a few reasons, but we're going to get into your project in just a moment. But one of the things, you and I have been good friends for a long time. We've been friends. We're probably pushing 20 years now.
Yeah.
One of the
weird.
Dude, it's been a long time. I think one of the constants over all these years has been wrestling. That's really what brought us together from day one. And to be able to work in partnership with you on this really cool project and be able to kind of bring the podcast into the mix as well, I think it's going to be a really cool thing for you to explore and get your art out there. You're a very talented comic artist, not just in the world of wrestling, but you draw a whole bunch of things. Maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about how long you've been drawing and what kind of came to be with this great idea for the magazine.
I've been drawing my whole life. Comics was really what got me into it, and then I was also a wrestling fan for my whole life. So they've meshed over the years, and I've always looked for just the right project to really bring them together. I've published or been published in comics about 10 times, a little bit more, with smaller bits. And I've been, all print media, all old school, media like we grew up with, the real comic books. And I was thinking I'd love to do a zine, but not just, the standard piece of paper folded in half, black and white. Like I wanted to do it deluxe. I wanted to do it something special.
Ooh, deluxe.
Yeah.
What does deluxe entail, bro?
So it's going to be 8.5 by 11, so real magazine size. It's going to have a beautiful cover stock to it. The whole thing's going to be full color.
Speaking of which, I'm gonna flip that right up. Keep talking, buddy.
Yeah, that's the cover by the very talented Rena.
Awesome, man.
and you'll be able to find her information, your information, everyone who's contributed on the inside. And it's going to have a special paper stock to make it feel like a maybe 50-year-old magazine in it, but brand new.
Man, you're going all out. You really love that print media. You really want to play into the nostalgia factor. Make it feel like it's from the past.
I think that's a perfect segue for our guest tonight, to be honest, because
absolutely
he knows how to bring that perfect mix of modern and retro together, and that's what I'm trying to do with our project.
Dude, I can't wait to see how this unfolds. You gave us a little snippet about what we're going to expect with the Old-Timey Wrestling Zine, and be sure to pass on those updates to me. I'll get it out there out on our show and in our Facebook communities, so more people, a lot have already shown some interest in it, so I can't wait to see what the next steps are. And it's it is a great segue to have Adam Alson come on to Pounding the Meat podcast and share a little bit about his journey in and fandom with wrestling and how he's come to be who he is today. So let's bring Adam onto the show. Welcome, Adam. How are you?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Let me tell you, what a pleasure it is to be on Pounding the Meat podcast. This is the best name you can come up with, Pounding the Meat.
we let's just say, so I joined the podcast a little bit later, but I had the same reaction when I first joined, and I quickly learned that all of us here love to pound the meat.
Well, sure. I don't know if we have to name our podcast that, but okay.
Big sweaty men pounding meat.
That's exactly it. That's what we love to tune in every Monday and Friday and every other day of the week. Just love to pound that meat.
I will say when Dylan, full transparency, Dylan is the one who kind of connected us all. He left the name of the podcast out. Was that on purpose, Dylan?
I thought I'd surprise you with it.
Oh man, I'm glad you didn't say anything.
It was definitely a surprise, but I love it. It's great.
Oh, we're happy to have you. I'm going to bring my co-host on, Joe Vitanza. He's a big fan of Big Shots. He's a big UFC wrestling buff as well, and I know he wants to be a part of this interview as well. So let's also bring on Joey V. Joey V, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you, buddy. Let's jump into it, Adam, if you don't mind. Let's start.
I have two more special guests here beside me.
Do you?
I have two more special guests. I have my childhood Macho Man.
Oh wow, Macho King.
Macho King.
Is that yours from when you were a kid?
I got him when I was like about a year and a half, 2 years old.
Wow.
So, yeah,
he looks like he's in pretty good condition.
I cleaned him today, and I got my girlfriend to help, which she didn't really want to, but I pushed her into it. And I also have the current champ.
Hey, that was
already.
There he is.
Fourth. So
Mr. Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare. He is.
Modern retro combination to start us off.
That's awesome.
And let me put those to the side so you can actually see me. And let's jump in.
Dylan, by all means,
first question is, how did some of the licenses you have come up, and any interesting stories that come to mind on how it all came together?
So I guess we have to kind of start backwards, because my background is really in sports branding and marketing. I have my own marketing agency. It's called Double Down Digital. You guys can check it out if you want. That's doubledown.digital. No .com or anything. It's .digital. And that's my agency. I started that in 2011, I want to say. But prior to that, I've been in, kind of an entrepreneur straight out of the womb, I guess. And I didn't realize it. I mean, quite literally, I would, and a lot of entrepreneurs I speak to have similar stories like this. Like as a kid, I was always like kind of coming up with like cool like ideas I could do in my neighborhood. Like I would create carnival games literally in front of my parents' house. and I would have like a squirt gun and be like, all right, you got to hit the target, draw a stupid target. I'd be like, all right, you got to hit. People be like, oh, I hit the target. I'm like, no, that's a drop, you know? Like, and I would give my personal plush to people as prizes. I'd set it up. I don't know. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just knew that this was something I wanted to do. I wanted to create experiences or foster gatherings, or I didn't know exactly what it was that I wanted to do. And I'm talking, I was a little kid. I was probably 6 or 7 years old when I was doing this. Man. And then fast forward to like junior high, I would go to like my local Costco. You guys are in Canada, right? So do they have Costco in Canada?
We forgot Costco.
You do? I don't know. I know they have like an equivalent in different areas. Yeah. So anyway, I would go like the local Costco, and I would pick up like a big box of blow pops, stick the box of blow pops in my backpack and bring it to school. And I'd be selling blow pops to kids in school for $0.25 a piece. And I'd come home with like $30 in a day. And when you're like, in junior high, how old, 12 years old, $30, you're rich. You know what I mean? So that's really kind of how I got started with my kind of entrepreneurial journey. And I know there was a lot of kids that did stuff like this. But again, it really wasn't the money that I was doing it for. It was just kind of like more than networking, like, because you'd meet a lot of kids selling blow pops. Like you're almost like a drug dealer. You know what I mean? And when you have candy in school, because not many kids, unless they brought their own, had this kind of candy.
I want to address this comment right here. Mike Jones, who's one of the producers of the show, says he sounds like he grew up with with the wrong friends, and he would like to be friends with you now, Adam.
Absolutely. Send me a friend request, Mike. So, long story short, but getting back to what Mike just said, I was a procrastinator myself. I wasn't the best student in the world. Dylan, I'm sure you'll appreciate this. As a kid, I was a huge fan of comic books, as you could imagine. I was super into Ninja Turtles and Marvel and, fucking Lobo and like all these, like the Max, like all these like really, really cool, like different style of art. Dark Knight comic books, obviously. And I would take these comic books and I would take them home, and, Jim Henley's Universe. You guys familiar with Jim Henley's Universe? Yeah. That was like my ritual. It was like every Saturday, go to Jim Henley's Universe, see what was out. Was it X-Force or Infinity Gauntlet? I'm going back, right? I'm not sure how old you guys are, but this was the comic books that were hot when I was a kid. The Death of Superman, like all these amazing comic books. I grew up in the middle of a comic book boom. It was a revitalization of the comic book. And the Ninja Turtles, like I said, were red hot. So, and I was just a huge fan of the artwork. And so I would bring these comic books home, and I would draw them, like try to replicate a Ninja Turtle, or try to replicate whatever it was that it was, catching my attention at that time. Even video games like Earthworm Jim and stuff like that. I would try to draw the covers of Sonic and just kind of copy like these masters that were doing some really incredible work. And unbeknownst to me, I was kind of giving myself a college education in branding and marketing, because I paid attention to the colors, I paid attention to the lines and the intention of the artist. And again, it wasn't really a conscious decision. It was just something that really drew me in, and I couldn't deny it. You know what I mean? And I'm sure Dylan, as an artist himself, kind of could identify with that. So naturally, what's that?
Oh yeah, for sure. You're bringing up so many of my favorite artists. Even my teacher, because I went to school for comics. He personally knew Sam Keith, who did the Max.
Oh my God!
And he kind of helped him in his early days, because he was a bit older, and it was all because of a Ninja Turtle parody, actually, called like Mutant Hamsters or something.
Okay.
And the idea of hiring Sam Keith to work on that is it's crazy, but that's the 90s, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what was big.
That's right. So, as I kind of continued down my artistic journey, the computer revolution kind of started to happen. I mean, it was already happening in the 80s and stuff, but, the America Online was happening, and, like people were starting to get connected to the internet. And I remember I was in school one day and some kid came along with a floppy disk. This is a really funny story. Came along, like I was in gym class. It was the only class I went to basically. And the kid gives me like a 3.5 inch disc. And he's like, you have AOL? Like when, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember, but they had the AOL trial discs. Do you guys remember those CDs? Yeah. It would be like 30 free hours or whatever, which was complete nonsense, right? But he goes, put your AOL CD in your computer and put this in there. And he's like, it'll basically hack AOL. And it was a program at the time called Schizo's Fake Account Creator. I guess the statute of limitations have passed, right? So I guess I can talk about this.
You're safe, Adam.
All the way in Canada, right? So
we'll house you if we have to, man.
So quite literally, the first time I ever accessed the internet, I basically committed credit card fraud. It was the first time because. And again, I'll kind of take you behind the scenes of what this program did. For the people that are listening, if you know what a macro is, you guys know are you familiar with like a computer macro, like what it does? It basically does a bunch of steps for you without you doing it. It's just a bunch of actions that the computer does. So you put this disk in, you started up AOL, and you basically hit sign up, and then you hit run on the macro. And basically what it did was it knew all the fields for AOL. It fill out all the nonsense, like where you lived, like, all your billing information. And at the time, again, I guess like 95, 96 or something like that, they didn't have real-time credit card checking yet. It wasn't a real-time credit card transaction. So they couldn't figure out if the credit card was a real credit card or if you just figured out how to like create a credit card that looked like a real credit card. Right. So like, and I again, because I did this for so long, I figured out how to create fake credit cards. All he had to do was like a valid prefix and a valid suffix, which is the first four for the last four. Everything in the middle could be made up. Again, at the time, because there wasn't real-time credit card processing at the time. So on my way, I went into the world of kind of like hacking and getting into all these, like, they used to call them wares rooms. And you could get into these wares rooms on AOL. Wares meant software, and they were hacked programs. So, of course, for me, being an art nerd, the first thing I wanted to download was like the first version of Photoshop, right? Because I wanted to take my art and take it to the next level, right? So I was like, I could like figure out how to like, manipulate and do graphic design and stuff like that. So once I downloaded Photoshop by way of like all this, shenanigans that I got myself into. What's that?
It's called thuggery.
Yeah, right, exactly. Thug life chose me, right? Yeah. So quite literally, I downloaded Photoshop and it sucked me in like the mothership herself. I mean, I was literally glued to my computer, just teaching myself Photoshop. Like basically like creating like just like really cool like illustrations of like montages. I mean, and if I look back at it now, I'd be like, wow, this was really corny. But for the time in the 90s, in the late 90s, like it was really cool stuff, right? Because I was able to create art, like stuff that like I would see in magazines. It wasn't just me taking pencil to paper anymore. It was on my screen. It changed kind of how I thought. And then of course the next thing I had to teach myself was how do I make a website so I could publish my art and put it out there. So I again went to the wares rooms and downloaded a program called Front Page and taught myself HTML through Front Page, which was like kind of a wiki, a WYSIWYG HTML editor. And I started teaching myself how to make websites at the age of like, I guess 16 or something like that. See, like then that was impressive. Now it's not, right? Because these kids have grown up with iPads in their hands and they're making Roblox like maps and games and at the age of like 6, which is totally mind blowing to me now. But back then it was kind of a big deal for a 16-year-old or even a 15-year-old, however old I was, to teach himself all this stuff, because you got to remember back then, broadband wasn't out. There wasn't even like classes for this stuff yet. Like if you wanted to go learn this stuff, you had to like find somebody that knew it and have them teach you. YouTube wasn't around yet. You couldn't just YouTube it, right? So you had to really spend serious time in front of your computer to really learn all this stuff. And I did. And I loved it. It was like, oh my God, like it was, you know, like I said, it was a revolution to me. You know, I was like, oh my God, I could take my art, my ideas and put them online. What? People could see it. Granted, it was probably like 4 people, right? But it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter. So again, I went back to school and I said, hey guys, I know how to make websites now. I'm going to make a website for all of us, right? So I started making profile. I basically created a really shitty version of Facebook, right? Because no one could like upload or like edit their own profile. The idea was like, I made the profile for you and I put like MIDI music in the background. It was super corny. It was like almost like my first MySpace page, if you will, right? And so that's really how I got started. And because I was so obsessed with just creating online, like creating content online, my grades and my schooling suffered because of it, of course, right? Because I was just, the only thing I wanted to do was just be on my computer. But you know what? Like, that's what I enjoyed. I was just not, it's not that I wasn't a smart kid. I was just a disinterested student, right? Because what ended up happening, I would go to high school and I would like be like, all right, I went to my first, second, and third periods of school. And then I'd go to, you know, 3 periods of lunch that I really wasn't supposed to go to, right? Hang out with all my friends and be like, all right, it's time to go home, eat some food, because both my parents worked. And I would go and get back on my computer and, you know, either play video games or again, continue to teach myself what it was that I wanted to really learn, more website stuff, more graphic design stuff. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing to the point where my parents got a phone call one day and they said, hey, you know, just FYI, none of your son's teachers knows who the hell your son is or what he even looks like, because I wasn't going to school. I was checking in. I was like leaving in the morning.
You knew what you were doing.
Yeah. Going to school and then coming back, because again, both my parents worked. They didn't. By the time they got home, they were like, "How was school?" Like, great, right? Right. So, you know, essentially that the jig was up, and I got kicked out of school. They were like, you know, you got to figure out what it is that you're going to do, and you know, they were like, you know, we'll leave you back. And I was like, I don't want to get left back kind of situation. And I said, how about I go get my GED, which is your good enough diploma for people who don't know what the GED is, right? So I went and I did that. I took the test. I didn't even study for that. I just took it and I got lucky. I passed. But then after that, my parents were like, you're going to go to college now, right? I'm like, guys, it didn't work out the first time. Like,
at a time, Ma.
I didn't even go to high school. So like, why do you think I'm going to go to college? And then on top of that, the stuff that I would want to have gone to college for, they weren't really teaching, right? Like just like the graphic design stuff, the programming stuff, they just weren't teaching it, not yet anyway. So, and I said, even if I did, I was like, I would know more than the professor, because it just was it was a different world in 1997, very different. So I told my dad, I have an idea. What if we created an online business directory for local businesses? Again, in 1997. You got to remember, Google wasn't around yet. City Search wasn't around yet. Yahoo wasn't around yet. None of these things were around yet. So my father was like, you came up with this idea? I said, yeah. Basically, to him, my father's thinking, you want to take the phone book and put it online. And I said, yeah. Pretty much, but you know, we'll make it like a fun graphical interface, and so my journey began with that, and we started going door to door, literally, because again, email wasn't really a thing yet. People weren't online like that yet. I mean, the crazy thing is, how about this? My father and I would literally go from store to store, knocking on doors with a laptop, and we would demo like what the website would look like. You know, here's what we're selling, basically, and the funniest rejection that we would get would be, my customers aren't online. Just think about that. Yeah. What a time capsule. That response is, oh, my customers aren't online. Could you imagine? That was a real thing that people would say to us in 1997, and they were right. They weren't online yet because broadband wasn't a thing. People were still getting familiar with people were still dialing up and not, like I said, until broadband really caught on, which was like, I guess 2000, right?
Yeah,
people really started getting, something around there. So we were really early in the game. But with that being said, even in the early days with people not being online yet, within our first year, we sold 100 small businesses on Staten Island, which is where I grew up. I mean, granted, they were very, very small websites. They were like landing pages, right, that we would create. And we sold them for $300, $400 a piece. And I had a nice little business at the age of 17 years old. And again, that's really how I got started. That's really how I got started with the entrepreneurial bug, because all my friends were going off to college and I was already starting my career, unbeknownst to me. You know what I mean? Because again, I was lucky enough to have a father that, and I know a lot of people aren't in this boat. A lot of people have, unfortunately, parents that, don't foster this kind of, encouragement. And it's sad. And that kind of that'll bring me back full circle to why I created Big League Pillows. But more importantly, I was lucky enough to have a father that was like, I will take my days off, Saturdays and Sundays, and we'll go store to store to store. And not only did he show me that, hey, your idea could make money, but he also taught me one of the most important things I think anybody could learn as an entrepreneur, and that's how to sell. Right? If you don't know how to sell, you're dead in the water as an entrepreneur. You better be, and more importantly, he also taught me to be passionate about whatever it is that you're doing, right? Because your passion is contagious, right? And people, maybe they don't necessarily get what you're selling, but they'll feel the passion before they'll understand exactly what it is you're selling. People, excitement and passion, it's contagious, right? And people want to be part of what you're excited about. So that's kind of, that was, two huge major takeaways. And again, as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid, I was so shy. I didn't want to talk to anybody, right? And I'm sure you got a lot of us can relate to that. But it was a hell of an introductory entrepreneurship 101 at the age of 16, 17 years old.
That's an incredible story, Adam.
That is really cool.
Formal education isn't for everybody, and I see this every single day in my line of work. And the two things that really stood out to me in that story from your upbringing is, one, you had supportive parents that really motivated you and helped guided you and always believed in you. And the second thing is, you found your passion and you ran with it, man.
Yeah.
That's the thing that so many kids today, I think in many respects, they might not have that parent or that caring adult in their life that can really stand behind them and to push them. And I think just with how the world has unfolded over the last 4 years too, it's very crazy times that we all lived through together, and we're still coming out of it. And I see kids still feeling the effects of the pandemic. So to find something that they're passionate about, even when they're not able to sit in a classroom for so many hours a day, you found education outside of the classroom. And I think that in many ways is so much more important than just getting your diploma in so many ways.
1,000%.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot actually of I was pretty young when I got into comics, and I was shy as well. And then I learned very quickly, because I'd go to Fan Expo, which is kind of like our San Diego Comic-Con here.
Yeah.
That you got to hustle one book at a time for 4 days straight, and you get there early and you leave late, and you got to make connections in between, and you're staying up late because you're going out to dinner with all the guys and all your heroes sometimes if you're really fortunate. And this book, Matt doesn't know it yet, but he's going to be beside me, and we're going to be hustling the magazine one copy at a time. Look at how excited he looks.
I can't wait.
That's the way it goes, though. One book at a time. One, in my case, one plush at a time. Look, when I first started all this stuff, I had no idea if people would be receptive to it. And once again, like even even with, when I was first started doing these websites, like I was petrified. I was petrified to go into the first business that we went into. I'll never forget. I remember it was like a Saturday or something, and he's like, "We're going to go into this store," and it was a pool supply store in the middle. It was the summer, yeah. And I was like, "Oh, pool supply store! Like, I don't want to go in there." Like, I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy's not going to want to buy a website from us, And that's a huge lesson right there. Never defeat yourself. Never, like you gotta give yourself a shot on goal. In other words, take the shot, right? Don't not swing or don't shoot because you think you're gonna miss. You gotta swing. Maybe you'll make contact, maybe you won't, right? But at least you swung. And I was defeating myself before we even walked through the doors of that pool supply store. Because I thought to myself, there's no way this guy's going to buy from there was nobody in the store. There was dust on the shelves. Like, how pool supply stores are. There's that guy, an old crusty guy in the back that, doesn't want to be bothered. He's busy playing solitaire or whatever he's doing. Right. And that's kind of what happened. And wouldn't you believe, like my father said, it doesn't matter if he buys from us or not. We're going to hone our pitch. And, and I said, okay, I followed my dad's lead. And wouldn't you believe that first business we went into, that guy, he bought from us. He bought a website from us. When I defeated myself before we won, and that was another huge lesson that I learned. And that experience right there, I think that pool supply store, Grecian Pools, shout out Grecian Pools on Staten Island. That business owner might have seen me and said, you know what, maybe he didn't buy because he thought it would bring him all this business, but maybe he saw a young kid starting a business and wanted to support him. And you know what? I'm forever grateful. I don't even know who the guy is, but because I probably last time I saw him, I was probably 17 years old. But that was a huge life-changing moment for me.
I wanted to ask you, did you always have like this ambitious entrepreneurship like mindset that this is what I'm going to do?
Again, like it's funny how you like position that question, but to me, I don't look at it that way.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I guess if that's what your perception of me is, then probably, you know what I mean? I know this is a wrestling podcast, so I'm going to bring it full circle. Yeah. So, again, I grew up a tremendous Hulkamaniac, and I'm sure all of us could kind of identify with that. Like, I was a huge wrestling fan, a golden era, right? I'm probably a little older than you guys, so I grew up with JYD, Hulk Hogan, Hillbilly Jim, Jake the Snake, $1 Million Man, like Virgil. Like, I was a weird pull, but you know what I mean? Like all those guys, right? Like Coco Beware, like George Animal Steel, like that era of wrestling that was just larger than life, where people were like, is it real? Is it fake? Like, people really didn't know yet. Like, I guess people knew, but like to the kids, it was like Santa Claus. No, it's real. Like, you know what I mean? And so again, like that whole universe is another thing that was such a huge influence on me, right? Look, I know in hindsight, it's now, 2024, almost 2025. And, the Mr. McMahon documentary came out. Okay. Right. We all, I'm sure all four of us on this call were you guys, was anybody surprised? Like no one,
one bit.
I'm pretty sure Vince was kind of telling us the kind of guy that he was. So like, through the programming, especially through the Attitude Era, he was putting it on screen. 100%. So I don't think any of us were surprised. Look, do I condemn the things that he's done? Of course, yes. Yes, he shouldn't have done a lot of these things. But if we're talking about his career as a creative, he's inspired millions and millions of fans, including myself, right? You want to talk about a master in marketing and branding? Oh my God. If you think about it, this man figured out how to create brands, brand identity, quite literally, brand identity for each wrestler that came into his universe, and he was going to market. And that's what he did, right? I mean, the guy was the Stan Lee of wrestling. He created all these characters, right? I mean, granted, there were some guys that came to him like Macho Man and, you know, a few other guys that kind of came to him already kind of in their final form. But for the most part, 90% of the guys that came to him, he either rebranded or he came up with a new concept for them. And that was another professor of mine. No doubt about it. I studied everything. And even when, you know, they would cut promos, how they cut promos, why they cut promos, everything about that was brand messaging. You don't, again, if you kind of look back at it and you say, why did this guy make this decision? Or the storytelling is the same thing we do with brands. It's the same thing we do with brands. Every guy had his own brand. $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. I watched him do a podcast. And what he said was, you know, kayfabe, right? Like what he said was, you know, hey, like even when I was out, Vince told me hand out a couple $100 bills here and there, right? Just to kind of keep up that perception. And he said, don't worry, I'll pay you back, right? So every so often he would go out in public and people would recognize him and he would give people $100 bills. So he said he would always keep $100 bills in his pocket. It was on brand. I'm sure Vince was happy that he was the only guy who had that kind of brand perception. Imagine all the guys handing out $100 bills. That, you know, WWF wouldn't have lasted very long. But it was brilliant in every sense of the word what the man did and built. Right? Again, the person flawed for sure. But what he did from a brand marketing perspective, masterclass.
100%.
Masterful.
I have to say, even the color schemes of us that we saw growing up, you saw pink and black, you thought Bret Hart, red and yellow, you thought Hulk Hogan, green and black, you thought DX. Like he kept it going.
That's right. Oh no, this is exactly
marketing 101.
Yeah. Every guy had his own color palette. You know, granted, they would change, you know, costumes from time to time, but they had their primary colors, is what we call it. Right? They had their primary colors. They had their brand tone. They had logos. It was awesome. It was awesome. We don't realize it as kids, but we watched a master of branding and marketing. And in that sense, the creative sense, Vince McMahon was one of my idols. You know what I mean? I hold him in the same regard creatively, not as a person. Creatively, say this. I want to cancel you. I hold him in the same regard as a Stan Lee, a Walt Disney, in the creative sense. Again, the man aside, but you know, from his drive, his creativity. I mean, what he did was one in a million. You know, he made wrestling what it is today. If it wasn't for him, I don't know that we'd have wrestling in this form, right? That he decided to kind of go national with it and so on and so forth. I mean, it was very, very impressive what he did. But you know, I digress.
Running with the whole marketing. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, I was going to say he took his shot. Like he went national. You know, he wanted expansion, global expansion. He wanted to be the top dog, and he took that chance. And, you know, you were talking about the quote earlier about failure and all that. Like, I like to use a quote from Paul Heyman, fellow, you know, New Yorker of yours. He says, you cannot achieve success without the risk of failure.
For sure.
And I believe that, you know, like McMahon.
I'll give you another one. I don't know if anyone's ever said this before. Maybe somebody has. I don't know. But what I like to say is, failure is the stepping stones to success. You have to fail.
Yep. Once you hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up. From
like the rock bottom?
Well, that too, pun intended. But
That's
running
what
with the whole marketing, and I have to go back. I mentioned this in the very beginning of the intro. I have to go back to that 1990 commercial, for the Wrestling Buddies, because when I think back to marketing and branding, and to when I was kind of first exposed to that side of professional wrestling, I go back to this.
Will you please see what those boys are up to?
Introducing WWF Wrestling Buddies. Wrestling Buddies from Tonka. Funk 'em, bop 'em. Wrestling Buddies are looking for action.
Hey, fellas, what's going on?
Nothing, Dad. Yes!
Who do you think you are?
Dad, Hulk Hogan!
Wrestling Buddies want to be your buddy.
Henry, what's going on up there?
Nothing, dear.
WWF Wrestling Buddies, new from Tonka. Each sold separately.
If that doesn't make you want a wrestling buddy and want to drop the elbow down and hit a DDT, or like, man, the memories that commercial takes me back to, and the experiences with my friends and beating up those wrestling buddies, for me, that's where it started.
I was envious of those kids with the wrestling ropes. I'm like, how did they get that?
Yeah, how did they get a wrestling bed?
4 and a 5-year-old, like, what's going on?
I'm still envious. I'm ready to put on my queen size.
I'm not sure if you guys know who Stephanie Iskander is. Have you guys heard that name before?
She's the artist, no, of the buddies.
She's the original artist of the Wrestling Buddies. I've been lucky enough to work with her on another project, and she's obviously brilliant. I mean, she put together the original Wrestling Buddies. And so this is a really funny story she told me, and I'll share it here. Credit Stephanie Iskander. This is straight from her mouth. The original Wrestling Buddies weren't licensed. They were just going to be called Wrestling Buddies. They weren't WWF Wrestling Buddies. They were just Wrestling Buddies, and they were just bruisers. Just weird looking dudes or whatever. And they made a deal with WWF last minute. Basically, they made it kind of happen, and it was happening right before, I think she said, the New York City Toy Fair, right? And so quite literally, they had blank Wrestling Buddies made up, and they drew on the actual dolls themselves with like fabric paint markers. Wow. And had to color all of them in by hand, right? To have samples. And so the samples you see in that commercial are the samples that they used for Toy Fair. So those are not production toys that you're looking at. Those are actually hand drawn. And if you go back and you look, and if you're familiar with your original Wrestling Buddy, you'll say, oh yeah, the color is a little different. And the art does look a little like slightly different. But the concept is there. It's good enough. It's good enough. And I always found that to be very interesting, that the version of the Wrestling Buddies that you see in those commercials are actually hand drawn. I think that's amazing.
That is amazing. I would love to know who has those original prototypes.
Right. They got to be out there somewhere. Or you know what? Sometimes time has a funny way of just destroying things.
You're gonna find one on eBay in like a week for like $50,000.
No way. I'm sure. You know what? If it was out there, I'm sure we would have heard about it somewhere. I know there are.
Matt Cardona or someone would be on it, 100%.
Yes, Matt. I know Matt has or had the artwork of the Boss Man. Somebody has the artwork of the Boss Man somewhere. I don't know if it's Matt or not, but somebody has like prototype drawings that they would use to like transfer the artwork. But yeah, no. I mean, listen. The funny thing about these, buddies. Obviously I had one. And if I didn't have one, I don't know that I'd be sitting here on this podcast today. It was my favorite toy of all time to get to beat the crap out of Hulk Hogan. I had Hulk Hogan, of course. I had everything Hulk Hogan. I had the Hulkamania workout set. I had the LJNs. Like you name it. I had it. I would wake my parents up every morning with the Hulkamania workout set. Workout set cassette tape that you had, and it was hysterical. Blaring. I had a little boom box, and I would wake up every morning with I don't know if you guys remember. The workout set was probably the funniest thing ever, because as a kid, as we destroy shit, right? And I had to figure out what was inside of these weights. These little weights. Do you remember the weights that you know what I'm talking about? Yep. There were these blue weights. And you know what it was?
Mania, didn't they?
No, they were just these blue like weights, like
Dumbbells, little dumbbells.
dumbbells. They were correct. They were the blue dumbbells, and they were blue plastic, but they were heavy.
Mhm.
So as a kid, I had to cut it open, and so I did. I cut it open. And you know what was inside of it?
What's that?
Concrete.
Wow.
Wow.
Could you imagine? They sold us concrete. That's what they did.
Imagine if that thing fell on you.
Yeah. Could you imagine? They
Drop it on
sold.
your toe.
They quite literally sold cinder blocks wrapped in plastic, in blue plastic, to kids.
And we ate it up.
Oh,
By the makers of lawn darts.
crazy. But listen, different times. But anyway, getting back to the buddies, my Hulk Hogan thing, my Hulk Hogan wrestling buddy was my favorite thing ever. I want to rewind a little bit. Again, and I'll make this as short as possible. Is this like a Joe Rogan podcast, or is this like you guys have a time limit?
No, we can keep this as long as we we want.
I think we've already lost a lot of people, I'm sure. So kind of like giving you a quick transition on kind of how I got to where I am today. I did my entrepreneurial thing at the age of 17. I ended up going to take. I was not a typical sports fan. My brother and my father were really the sports fans, so I was like a sports fan, like by way of my dad and my brother. They liked basketball and football and baseball, and and being around it, you kind of get swept up in it. Of course, being from New York. Yankee fan, Knick fan. I'll accept your condolences now. Thank you very much.
I won't hold it against you.
But
We're Leafs fans, so we're hurting all the time.
Cleveland fan over here, so all right.
Hey, the Guardians got a good team. So I ended up taking a job over at the Nets. I got an offer to work with the New Jersey Nets while they were still in New Jersey, and you guys will appreciate this. I got to meet Vince Carter while I was there, which was so freaking cool, and became friendly with him and ended up turning him into a personal client of mine, which was a total trip, right? But while I was at the Nets, I, kind of helped them kind of rebrand their website and, all this other great stuff. I was there for about 3 seasons, and I made some incredible connections while I was there. And to any entrepreneurs or to any, anybody that's kind of like in the system and they're working at another company, don't ever look at working at a job and you feel like you're on the right trajectory as a dead end, because it's not. Because what ends up happening is the places that you work, you forge some really cool relationships with a lot of the people that work at that particular place that you're working at. In my case, it was the Nets. And I didn't realize this, but again, the spider webbing of my network continued to grow because I was working in sports, and all these people that I worked with in sports went on to do some really, really incredible things. And I had friends that were VP of this and, high ups, right? Like their journeys continued, my journey continued. And so if I needed a favor, or if hey, let's collab on something, I could reach out to my old pal, and they're familiar with my work because, I worked with them and they knew what I was capable of, and so on and so forth. So I was already in good graces, and I already had a foot in the door with whoever it is that I was reaching out to. So that's kind of what happened with my Nets experience. Working, I was a young kid, and I got to meet some really incredible people, and those people went on to do some really incredible things. And I'm friends with all those people to this day. I still chat with a lot of them, which was an incredible thing. But not only that, I ended up creating another opportunity for myself while I was there, because now I was on a larger stage. People could see my work. Everything that gets posted on the website is a result was me. I was a one-man show, really. I mean, I had another friend of mine that I was working with at that time too. His name is Adam Padilla. Shout out to Adam, another creative brother-in who is another absolute genius. And we got to do some really, really incredible things together while I was there. And he went on to work at another agency, and he was like, "You got to come work with me at this particular agency." So off I went to work with this other agency. And from working with the Nets, I got a chance to go work with Muhammad Ali, Tom Brady, Reggie Bush, the Jonas Brothers, and So we were, again, this is early days of digital marketing. Like social media really wasn't hitting just yet. Like Facebook was out and stuff like that, but it was early Facebook.
Yeah, it's not what it is today.
Yeah, Instagram wasn't out yet. I think MySpace was definitely around, but it wasn't exactly what it is now. So we were creating some really incredible brands. At the time, I had a chance to work on Muhammad Ali's website, ali.com, which was incredible, and I had a chance to win a Webby for that, and I won a Webby. I'm not sure if you guys know what a Webby is. A Webby is like the Oscar of the internet, which was really cool for like, thank you. It was a best celebrity website, which was amazing. I mean, I think we were up against like Jim Carrey and a couple of other really cool celebrities at the time. And I got to work with Matt Damon, and we did work with Brad Pitt. We did some incredible. I mean, this agency was pulling some serious clients, and it was a small agency. It was a boutique agency. I would say at peak, maybe we had like 12 employees. And in the creative department, there was probably 3 to 4 people. Like, it was very small agency. From there, some things went down. I really wasn't kind of on, like, my buddy left, and like the culture was changing. So the writing was on the wall. I had to leave, and I ended up leaving. I didn't know what I wanted to do at that particular time. I was like, do I go work at another agency? Right, because that was easy. I just put my resume out, and I'm sure I got another job at an agency. But the old entrepreneurial bug struck again. and so I was like, you know what? Let me just put my feelers out there to my network. Again, this is where the network comes into play.
100%. I was going to say, it comes all back to the networking, man.
Yeah, all the people that you've touched, and not in the inappropriate kind of way, but like in a
consensual networking kind of way.
That's exactly right. All the people that you've worked with, all the people that you've built some brand equity, personal brand equity with, right? Who understand what you're capable of. I just said, hey, listen, I'm on the market. If anybody wants to work with me, reach out. Basically, like glorified freelance, right? I didn't even have a company name yet. And one of my guys that I was working with was like, hey, I actually have a big project. He's like, you think you could work with me on it and like give me some serious time? And I was kind of like, fuck yes. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is what I need it now. I was out of a job, right? And I was living in Manhattan at the time. Manhattan rent ain't cheap, So I said, yeah, I'll definitely do it, right? So, he's like, all right, I'll get you a check tomorrow, basically. So that way, I'm locked up. So I'm like, great. He's like, who do I write the check out to? Right. So, I mean, I didn't want to write it out to me for tax purposes. Right. So I'm like, I got to come up with a company name. I didn't even have a company name yet. So whatever. I came up with like a bullshit company name that I was like, I'll change it later. Right. And it took me years to change it, but I eventually did change it. That's another thing, by the way. If anybody's listening to this and you want to start a company, there's a lot of things that people can get hung up on, and the name of the company is one of those things. Don't get caught up in that. Like, just pick something and move on to the next thing, right? It doesn't matter what the name of the company is. Just perfect example.
We come full circle.
Right? Beating the meat. Perfect. Like, let's go. Like, just get going. Because if it has success and you're doing the right thing, you can always change the name later. Just don't get caught up in the minutia of a lot of these small decisions. And I know we all go, oh, what do you mean? The name of the company is a huge decision. It's not. It's only a big decision the second you're actually making some real money, and you need to change it. Then okay, like, and I always look at it like, all right, like that's just another reason to reach out to people. Hey, Matt, I changed the name of my company, right? Like, it's now this. Oh, now Matt and Joe and Dylan have all heard from me again, and they know I've changed the name of my company and I'm doing bigger things now. So it's just another reason to reach out to people. So that's what I did, and fast forward. Oh my God, I think I'm in my 12th year of Double Down Digital, and we have some really incredible clients. We work with Dwayne Johnson, $7 Productions, Cedric the Entertainer. A bunch of athletes and celebrities. Vince Carter, obviously, still one of my clients, and So we've done some really, really incredible work. And so I'm getting into the pillows. So what ended up happening was I had a cookie client. We were making cookies, and they call it a CPG, consumer product goods. And they wanted me to fly out to Chicago for a photo shoot. So I said, okay, I'd never been to Chicago before at that time in my life. And so I said, okay, I'll go out to Chicago. And while I was in Chicago, I was doing, Instagram was around now. So I'm like, oh, I'm in Chicago. Look, the bean, look, deep dish pizza. Like I'm like posting on my Instagram stories or whatever. And I had a guy reach out to me, and he was like, I see you're in Chicago. He's like, my pillow factory is in Chicago. You should come see my pillow factory. And so I said, I appreciate entrepreneurs, and obviously, that's why, Dylan and I connected. He's an entrepreneur himself, and, wanted, to chat about, kind of like what we're chatting about now. Huh? And so quite literally, it was the same kind of courtesy. He was like, come check out my pillow factory. I said, okay, I'll come check out. If anybody's doing something cool, like I'm into it, like something that I think is cool. Right. So obviously Dylan's doing something cool. He's putting out his magazine. I appreciate the hustle. Right. So anything I could do to help out fellow entrepreneurs where I can, when I can, I do. And so that's kind of like what I did with this guy that was making his pillows in Chicago. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know he was an hour away from where I was. If I had known that, I'd been like, maybe not. But yeah, after an hour Uber ride, I was, I was pot committed at that point. So I took the time. I was impressed by kind of what the guy had put together, and he was making dog and cat pillows. So I'm not sure if you've seen these guys. You send them a picture of your cat, or you send a picture of your dog, or your parakeet, or your car, whatever it is, whatever you want a pillow of, he'll make it, right? Which is cool, like, right? But I looked at it from a brander, like from a brand marketing standpoint, like, and I go, this is cool, and it's a service business, right? It's no different than grooming somebody. I don't know. It's a service. It's the only way I could kind of explain it. Like somebody who comes in and cleans your couch, or somebody who does something for you. They cut your hair or whatever. And granted, you could still brand yourself, but you're not creating brand IP. Does that make sense?
That does make, yeah.
100%.
He wasn't creating a product that you could eventually say, hey, I'm going to sell this thing. Or, eventually that you create equity in your business. Yeah. Right. So I was like, this is cool and all, but I just feel like you're not creating equity in your brand, really. Maybe equity in yourself, because people know you as, a guy who creates
custom pillow guy. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But I go, anybody could do that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So, I said, he said to me, you should create a pillow product, or come up with a pillow idea. So what the fuck do I know about pillows? I said, you know what? I said, you know what I know about pillows? I said, when I was a kid, I had a WWF wrestling buddy, and it was my favorite thing ever. That was my thing. And so I drew heavy inspiration from that. And one day, and I again, as an entrepreneur, once you plant a seed in an entrepreneur's brain, if they like that idea, it'll germinate and haunt them until they actually come up with something that they think will work, and they'll move on. And so that's kind of what happened with me with this, because he was like, come up with a pillow idea. And it just kind of echoed in my head for weeks. Right. And you know what I mean?
1990.
Yeah, quite literally. But again, I knew I couldn't do that because I didn't have a license. Right. So I had to back into something that I felt like I could do. Right. So I came up, it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, I can't remember. And I went to a poker room. I like to play poker. You guys like to play poker at all?
I'm more
Texas
of a
Hold'em
guy.
Blackjack?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to play poker and then spend all my winnings on comics and toys. That was my entrepreneurship plan when I was in high school.
That's great. Listen, once again, if you're an entrepreneur, I highly recommend playing poker, because poker is essentially, in my eyes, the way I view it, it's a great analogy for a boardroom table, right? That's the way I look at it. You're living and dying by the decisions that you make at that table. Whether you're going to make money or lose money, is it a good deal or is it a bad deal, right? Do I keep betting or do I fold? Do I walk away from this deal or do I put more money into it? There's a lot of parallels to poker and entrepreneurship. And so I really enjoy, believe it or not, that's how I decompress. And it's so funny because I was just listening to Elon Musk on Joe Rogan. He just reappeared. It was his second appearance. I think it was his third or second appearance. I think it was his second.
Third.
Yeah.
Was his third? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I love that guy. So Elon said how he decompresses is he plays video games. And I completely get it. What he was saying is that because, the weight of the world is on that guy's shoulders with all the shit that he's doing. And so what happens is when he's playing video games is nothing else matters. His focus is 1000% on that video game, and that's how he relaxes. And I get that because I'm the same way when I play poker. Yeah. I can't, with all the shit that I have going on with my marketing agency, now with Big Shots and Big League Pillows.
Dude, I can't imagine. You have no time.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot that goes on. So when I'm sitting at the poker table, nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Like I'm not thinking about the deal that I got to do tomorrow, or the person that I have to reach out to, or the fucking thing that went sideways on Sunday. You know what I mean? Like I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking about the two cards that are in front of me, the two cards that I'm holding in the flop, right? And then the people that are in the game. So I really enjoy that, and that's how I decompress. So I'm at this poker table, and at this particular time, I was getting shit cards all night, right? As the poker players call them, rags, right? So I was getting rags all night, and so I had some time to think. So this fucking idea popped in my head again, like these goddamn pillows, and it became kind of like, you ever see the show Iron Chef?
Yes.
Yeah.
It became kind of like an Iron Chef challenge, where they drop off like ingredients and they go, all right, now make a souffle, right? Right. And so I kind of looked at it like that, and it became like kind of fun, right? I was like, all right, like if I had a pillow company, like what would it be? And obviously, like I said, the big inspiration was the original Buddies. Yeah. But again, and anybody who does this kind of stuff has to lean into where their experience lies. Right? It has to be, what relationships could you potentially lean on to help you along your journey when you're going to create this? So, of course, I had a huge background in sports. So I go, all right, it's got to be a sports product, clearly, right? I have to start. So I had a starting point, which was good, right? And so I go, okay, it's got to be in sports. I go, all right, I'm clearly not going to have licensing, so it can't be licensed. Right. So, all right, how do I make this work? Now, the good thing about this guy was he was making pillows on demand, right? You send him a cat pillow, a cat picture, a dog, and he'd make them one off on demand, which is great. So I go, my ball pillow, no, that's been done. A helmet pillow, no, that's been done. I go, what about jerseys? I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I go, and then what if I let people build it? What if I put templates up? You can pick colors, you can pick a style, you can put whatever name, like whatever town you live in on the front, or family name on the back, pick the number. And then I was like, my wrestling buddy came in a really cool box. I was like, it should come in a box. The box could be like a locker. Oh, that's cool. And then I kind of tapped in, and I was like, well, one more, like it needs one more thing. I don't know what it is yet. And I leaned into the idea again. I don't know if you guys remember Cabbage Patch dolls.
Yeah.
But they came with a draft letter. I'm sorry, they came with a birth certificate. Yeah, right? Right, which really created a really nice experience for the girl. They felt like, I'm adopting this baby.
This child, yeah.
I'm responsible for this child now. Right? So it was a big deal. And it really created a really unique experience for the 80s. So I said, you know what? Instead of a birth certificate, what if we have a draft letter that inspires these kids to dream big? And so I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, we'll call it Big League Pillows. Like literally, it was lightning in a bottle. Like everything, like sitting at
I was
that.
going to ask you, Adam, like how long did that kind of just like instantaneous?
I think I literally came up with the entire idea in probably 5 minutes.
That's insane, bro.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy too. Cause like, again, I don't know if you could tell, like you see like all the guitars and stuff in the back. I'm a frustrated musician as well. Like and this is another story for another time, but like I have a really good friend. Well, high school bands, right?
Mhm.
We all probably went down that path at one point, probably horrible. But you know, whatever, it was fun. It didn't matter, right? It was garage band music, right? So I'm the guy that was in the band with the guy that went on to win Grammys. No joke.
Yeah.
No joke. And if I told you the body of work, everyone on this call will know the artists. Like went on to do incredible things. Again, another story for another time, maybe on the next pod.
We'll have you
back.
I'm already in.
But anyway, where was I going with this? I forgot.
The idea with Big League Pillows.
Yes. Okay.
Licensing coming up.
So you were asking me, like how long it took. Oh yeah, I know where I was going with this. I listened to a lot of interviews with a lot of my favorite artists. Chris Cornell is one of my favorites
as well
of all time. And you know, we all know the song Black Hole Sun.
Mm-hmm.
He said he wrote that entire song in his brain in a car ride home. The whole thing, including the solo, the breakdown. He didn't even have a guitar in his hand. In his head, he heard everything. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. So, look, I'm not saying I'm Chris Cornell or even close to his genius, but in this particular case, I just really drew from a lot of inspiration and a lot of things that were kind of already out there. I was inspired by a lot of the things that I had and I cherished as a kid. Now, we're going to come back full circle because remember we were talking about, you know, a lot of kids that didn't grow up with parents that were encouraging. This, I felt, was my opportunity to kind of give back to kids that maybe don't have the most. Well, and that's not necessarily true, right? Because if they're buying the product, you know, maybe they are encouraging. But at the same time, you don't know. Maybe an aunt or uncle bought it for them, or they got it as a birthday gift, right? So I just, and again, I'm not going to read the draft letter on the pod, but the letter starts with congratulations, you've been drafted to dream big, and it goes on to this
an acceptance letter, right?
Yeah, quite literally. But it's inspiring them to swing for the fences because they are special and because they are unique, and so on and so forth. And we want you on our team, right? Like it really, I've gotten so many incredible emails from parents saying, thank you for creating this product. It brought them to tears that they read it to their kid. Could you imagine parents reading it because it is an emotional letter. It really is. I've had NFL rookies reach out to me and tell me that they cried because we gift product to like athletes in the NFL, and that they read the letter and he cried when he read it and he signed it and he put it on his refrigerator and he wrote me on Instagram and he said, I just want to let you know what you put together is incredible, and just because I've made it to the big leagues doesn't mean I stopped dreaming big. And
that's profound.
Whoa.
Like whether you are a professional athlete that we all kind of look up to, or you're that kid kind of like yourself who was struggling in school and not quite fitting in that box, right? And is trying to figure out who he is as he goes. Getting a letter like that,
right?
Regardless, but that's
there's
all you need.
there's so much to this particular product that I love. I love in the digital age. Now, granted, the way the product is assembled and ordered is digital. Yes, I get that. But the end result is completely analog, right? It's a complete and total throwback product to what we probably had in the 80s and early 90s. I mean, you get a letter like that when you're a kid and it blows your mind. You really think that letter's to you. Yeah. You know what I mean? And especially that I put 2 lines, and I thought it was very important for me to have 2 lines. Obviously, a contract is 1 line, right? But I put 2. You know why I put 2?
I don't.
No.
Because I wanted because the kid, first of all, the kid ain't going to be able to read it, right? Maybe they will. Some of them will, right? Depends on their age. Yeah. But more importantly, I wanted to almost read like a bedtime story, and I wanted it to be an experience that the kid shares with a parent, aunt, uncle, guardian, grandmother, grandfather, and then that way the grandparent or the father or the mother signs it as a witness, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
So now it's a bonding experience, and what I call an indelible memory that kid will always remember, because it's going to be more than likely, I would assume, the first contract that kid ever signed.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
It's meaningful, and the kid will remember that. Hey, remember that letter you made me sign, or that contract you made me sign? And you know what? It's also a nice thing that parents could have an opportunity to call back. Hey, remember you said you were going to be good and you're going to swing for the fences and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that.
Yeah, you can use it as leverage.
Yeah.
1000%. So I like to call it good parent in a box.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But you could look at it like giving the kid like inspiration, like to do stuff.
1000%. Like I said, good parent in a box. Yeah. So yeah, that was my opportunity to give back to kids. And, we've gone on to sell tens of thousands of these things, which is really incredible. And this is the segue to kind of the meat and potatoes of how we kind of linked up. What ended up happening is, I guess, years into the journey of Big League Pillows, UFC or somebody who was representing the UFC for a license reached out to us. And I'm a huge UFC fan. I'm day one.
So is Joe. Joe is one of the biggest UFC fans that I know.
Yeah, I mean, I am 1993 Colorado UFC 1, like sitting inches in front of my television.
Joe has to show you something.
I also had that VHS. Like I have that VHS
classic
released, and I watched it a few times.
What is Joe doing?
Oh, he's got a little something for you.
He's a man. I know he's getting. Did we lose Joe?
No, he'll be back. Keep telling your story, Adam.
Okay, I was just going to show him this because.
Oh my God! You have the Ultimate Fighter, Ultimate Fighting first poster.
Yep.
Is that like a legit fight poster from from when they printed it, or is it like a repro?
I think it's a reprint. I have like every UFC poster from every event I went to.
That's a good one though.
And then I wanted that one because
it just inspired me. I might have to get one.
Growing up, as a wrestling fan,
right?
And then seeing I grew up with boxing too, but I remember the first UFC event, 1993, like you said.
Yeah.
It's funny because I have the first 12 on VHS still that I recorded with free pay-per-view.
Right.
And ever since then, when I first saw it, I was hooked on it.
Of course.
And for me, I don't miss a UFC event. My kid was born the day John Jones fought Rampage Jackson. I left the hospital to go watch that fight, and then I came back. I'm like,
I'm sure your wife forgives you.
You owe that kid a big league pillow.
Right. Listen, we could redeem you. We could totally redeem it. You just let me know where to send it.
I don't know, man. I'm looking at these big shots, man. The UFC, I'm like, oh man, this is so.
Well, Joe, you had your chance. You totally blew it. Good job.
No, I want big league.
So where was I? Oh yeah, UFC 1, right? So we were talking about UFC 1. So quite literally, I'm a day one fan, and when they reached out to us, I was like, "Oh my god, are you kidding me? We have a chance to work with UFC. We have to figure this out." So, but they were reaching out to us for big league pillows, but I'm like, and Joe, you know, they wear jerseys to the ring. They call them the walkout jersey. Yeah. But you and I both know, who cares about the walkout jersey?
Nope.
No one. I mean, unless you're like a diehard fan, then you're going to buy the walkout jersey. But people don't wear the walkout UFC jerseys like they wear a NBA jersey or MLB, right? You know what I mean? Like it's just not synonymous.
It just has their name on the back. It's just like a plain jersey, black or white.
It's not meaningful to the sport in that particular way. So when we were having this initial call with them, I said, listen, when I was a kid, I had a WWF wrestling buddy. It was my favorite thing. I said, why don't you let us create a prototype of Conor McGregor and let us know what you think? Because I said, the jersey is not going to work for you guys. It's just not. It's not going to work. I said, we have to leverage the fighters themselves. I said, that could potentially work. And I said, wow, what a full circle opportunity for me. Because again, the original inspiration, now I have this opportunity to do it with a brand that I really love. Now, here's where it gets interesting. We create this prototype. I should rewind. Nolan Harris. You guys familiar? No, I always screw up his name. Linoleum.
Linoleum? Maybe?
Nolanium. That's it. That's how you say it. I always screw it up. I go, you got to change your Instagram. I can't pronounce it. But his real name is Nolan Harris. And what a genius this fellow is. I mean, wow. I came across his artwork one day. We're going years back now. He said it one day. I was like, wow, have I known you that long? And he's like, yeah, dude. I was like, shit, it's crazy. Time flies. But and whenever I come across an artist, and I'm sure, Dylan, you'll appreciate this. Whenever I come across an artist on Instagram, if I really appreciate their artwork, I'll give them a follow. I'll like a couple of their pieces that I particularly like. But not only that, I also slide in and say, great fucking work, right? Because I appreciate that hustle. And I knew if I was an artist, I would want somebody to acknowledge, not only just follow me, but say, hey, dude, great fucking work. Keep it up kind of thing. And it privately, not on a comment. What's that?
100%. I love getting those messages from people, and it always means the most. Yeah.
It's totally meaningful.
And it, like you said about working, it really works well when you're working on a new project and you need to find someone, because sometimes it starts that dialogue.
1,000%.
That's how I found a few of the artists who are working on the zine.
Love it. So that's exactly what I did. Because again, we didn't even talk about 500 level, but I'm also involved in another company, an apparel company, officially licensed. And again, we didn't have a WWE license at this particular time for 500 level. We do now. But I think the first piece I saw that Nolan was doing was a Goldberg piece, and I reached out to the guy and I was like, "Hey, dude," I was like, "This is unbelievable! Great work." And he wrote me back. He's like, "Hey, it's not my work." I'm like, "Motherfucker, you got to be kidding!" It was somebody that reposted Nolan's work, and I was like, "Well, who did this?" And he's like, and then he sent me to his profile. I was like, "Oh shit!" And I got to reach out to this guy. So I reached out to, and then thank God Nolan did respond and was like, "Oh, thanks, man." And it was. I think Nolan was just getting started. I think he was like, I don't know how many followers he has now, but definitely way less than what he had. I think he's up to 100,000, but at that time, I think I want to say he had maybe 10,000 or 8,000, something like that. So, it was way before, I think he was just getting started with doing the wrestling stuff at that time. or maybe he was probably a year, and I don't remember the timeline. He's better with that stuff than I am. But anyway, yeah, I reached out and I was like, I don't know. I told him, I said, I don't know what we're going to work on together, but we're going to work together one day. That's basically what I said to him. And again, I didn't know that this was going to be a thing. I had no idea. But one day we ended up getting the WWE license for my apparel company, and we had at that time WWE had Macho Man, and Macho Man is one of my favorites, right? So I said we got to do a Macho Man design, right? We got to do one. So this was the first time Nolan and I worked together, and I actually have it. I still have it as my screen.
It's your lock screen.
It's hard to see, but it's a really, really great illustration that we put Forever Savage on it. And I gave Nolan every little bit of art direction I could possibly give him. Like to the pinky, to the I want his shoulders peaked up, like all the body language, right? That I want. And Nolan just was like, and he said something that I thought was just really nice. He said, I never worked with anybody that really gave me such great direction before. And I was just like, oh, wow. I was like, what do you mean? No one's giving you direction like that? He's like, no, not really. I'm like, really? Right? So I just couldn't believe that. And then I clearly had chemistry with Nolan, given our final result. I was just blown away.
You guys knew it. You felt it kind of instantaneously.
Yeah, it was like the mega powers. Yeah, mega powers. Yeah. So it was really cool to work with somebody so talented, and somebody who not only is talented, but just is ingrained in the culture himself, right? Like the dude lives it and breathes it, right? Like he loves it, right? And when you do something not only because you're good at something, but you actually are really, really into it, you love it, man, does it shine through, right? Yes, Mike Jones is spitting facts. His artwork is absolutely outrageous. And for anybody who's listening, I highly encourage you to go follow him. So the thing about Nolan, though, is that he wasn't, past tense, wasn't a UFC fan at this particular time. Oh. Was he familiar with Conor McGregor? Sure. Who wasn't? So it's funny because, we started working on this Conor McGregor prototype. We got it out in 2 weeks. We turned it around 2 weeks. Sent it off to the offices. They got back to us real fast. They said, everybody's fighting over it at the office. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. So now, fast forward 8 months later, we have a deal in place. We have a product that's live. And we're like, holy shit, this is incredible. And now not only do we have this thing that's this nostalgic play that's back in our lives, but we're doing it with the UFC, which is totally freaking cool. But I'm going to take a step back because if I had my druthers, as I like to say, I said to one of my business partners, I said, this is pre-TKO merger. I said, I don't want us to launch this product and then the WWE sees it and then they hate us and they won't want to work with us. So I said, we have to figure out how to reach out to somebody over at the WWE and see maybe if we could say, hey, just FYI, this is coming out and we'd love to work with you guys too. We don't want you to think, whatever, right? And so we did. And we had a conversation, which I thought was a great conversation with the WWE. And they said, believe it or not, one of the women who we were speaking with, she's like, I bought one of your big league pillows for my kids. And we love it. It is a great product. I said, oh my God, what are the odds?
And everything comes together. Everything comes together. It goes back to that networking.
I couldn't know. It wasn't networking. It was just, but it's happenstance. It just, because I didn't
place, right time.
I didn't know who she was. It was like a Zoom call, much like this. And, it was the first conversation I had. She's like, very familiar with your brand. Great product. Well, quality. I was like, wow, that's unbelievable. I mean, that's crazy. Speaking of blackjack, Joe, I was at a blackjack table in Las Vegas, and somebody next to me one day was like, you asked me what I did, and I told him, and she's like, I just bought one of them. It's
what are the odds?
It's so bizarre how sometimes these things happen. So it's always a trip when you meet people. You're like, wait, there are real people on the other side of these orders? Like there are real people? It's bizarre. It's bizarre. So anyway, we told them that we wanted to work with them clearly, and maybe we could get something going prior to our launch, and because we didn't want them to think, because at the time Vince was still kind of there, and Dana and Vince, although they got along, they were very competitive. Yeah. So I didn't want us to get blackballed from the WWE because we did this with the UFC. So I figured, let's go in and be 100% honest, and so we did. And I'll say this: it ended up being 3.5 years of conversation.
Wow.
Wow.
So very frustrating because it was, hey, we love you guys, but not yet kind of thing. It was like 3.5 years of courting, so let that be another lesson. Like persistence is key. Yeah. Because I think they also looked at us and said, hey, you guys are a small company, and they're not wrong. We are a small company, right? We're not Tonka, right? Of the 80s, and we're not Mattel, we're not Hasbro, right? We're a very small, scrappy, hungry, US made company, right? And that's not easy. It's not easy because a lot of these guys are going out and making their stuff in China and so on and so forth. And, it is what it is. And God bless them. It's a business model that's tried and true and it works. But for us, being made in the USA was very, very important to us, especially with the way our product is made. We couldn't turn our product around in a quick fashion if it was made overseas. Good luck ordering something from China that's custom. It'll take you months. Right. And people, when they order for us, it's like, oh, it's my kid's birthday next weekend. I need it tomorrow. Right. Yeah. So that's kind of how we got started. But that also allowed us to have some serious flexibility when we started working with the UFC. Right. Perfect example. We go live with the UFC. Fans are very excited. Very different crowd than the WWE. Right. But there's a lot of crossover. Right. There's a lot of fans that are the way I was, which is like I grew up with WWF, WWE, right? And was kind of really a big fan. I'm still a fan, right? But I mean, like when I was like peak fandom, I would say golden era through Attitude, right? That's not true. I was in Ruthless Aggression as well. Right?
You had to have a little bit of Ruthless in you.
yeah. But I think like the tail end of Ruthless, I can't even say it, Ruthless Aggression, I kind of lost it. I was like, I was getting a little older, right? Career started to like happen a little bit. So I kind of like, I think that was like probably when they were they didn't know what they wanted to be yet, right? Because like there was a lot, it started going super PG, right? And I was like, this is kind of like really getting like, they were aging me out. Right. So I kind of needed to find something new. Right. And that's where the UFC came along. It was perfect timing because it dovetailed for me. And that was when, and Joe, you'll appreciate this. This is when The Ultimate Fighter, the TV show really started to peak on Spike TV. Yeah. And so that's when I really, really got into it. I mean, I was a fan day one, as mentioned, but The Ultimate Fighter really took me in because that was the first time the UFC really started doing storytelling. Because before that, it was like, and then this guy who was like
big and this size fighting this
he was bouncing in a bar yesterday, and now he's in a cage, right? But it was the first time the UFC really started doing some serious storytelling, and we got to meet Nate Diaz, right? Yeah. And like, you know what I mean? Like that was fucking awesome.
It's
right?
like real world, but like fighting,
It was, and I would say, yeah. And that's what I would say. I'd be like, all right, you literally just created the greatest reality show of all time. Mm-hmm. Like instead of getting voted off the island, you get your ass kicked off the island. Like brilliant, right? So I thought it was great, and and obviously I became obsessed with it, and we ran with it, as you guys know. Here's a really cool story. So about 2 months into launching the UFC product, I get an email, and it's like, this guy's like, I work with Hulk Hogan, and we see what you guys doing, and they're awesome. We want to work with you guys. I'm like, no fucking way. Are you kidding me? Like, are you, like, really? Like, us? You sure? So I call the guy, I get on the phone, I have a nice phone conversation with him. And he's like, we want to do it. He's like, we've been looking into doing this. You know, me and the Hulkster, we've been trying to, you know, figure out how to make these things. And he's like, I love that you guys are American made. He's like, plays well into Hulkster's brand. I was like, yeah. I was like, let's do it. Are you kidding me? And so, like we had this great conversation, and like weeks later, I didn't hear from him. I'm like, what the fuck happened? Like, you know, and this is just FYI for anybody who's gonna do this stuff or wants to do this stuff. This is the way it goes. Like, it's not like success or success. I use the word success lightly because everybody's idea of success is very different. But I'm just saying, like, it's never this, right? It's the you know, it's a lot of this, you know, a lot of this, right? Before you actually get some hits. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've thought about just saying, fuck, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I just can't. And then something comes along and you go, I'm rejuvenated. All right, I'm back. I'm locked in. You know, and that's just the way it goes. And this was one of those moments where it was like really cool conversation with this guy, and then boom, right, fall off. I'm like, fuck. And then one day I was like, I'm good. I'm just gonna call him again. I don't give a shit, right? So I call him. What's that?
What do you have to lose, right?
Nothing. I guess voicemail. I get rolled to voicemail, right? So I called him again, and he picked up. And then I hear he's like, oh no way. He's like, it's Adam from Big Shots. I hear in the background, oh, right on, brother, like that in the background. I'm like, no way, right? And so right away, instant sweat coming from the armpits, instant flop.
I'm getting
sweats,
warm right now. I'm getting warm.
And I'm like, and he goes, oh, hang on a second. He's like, somebody wants to talk to you. I'm like, no way. Just profusely.
You start tearing your shirt.
Oh, dude, my girlfriend was like, what's going on? Like, because she saw me like freaking out, right? So she starts recording me. Like, so she's somewhere, there's a video of me. Like, my hair's all crazy. I just got out of bed. Like, you know, and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, Hulk Hogan is going. And he's like, let me tell you something, brother. Like, literally cut a promo on me on the phone. Like you couldn't, like, he is Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean? Like, at one time he was Terry Bollea, but he is now the full embodiment of Hulk Hogan. Like, when you have a full-on conversation, like, he's like literally cutting a promo on me on the phone. Let me tell you something, brother. This is exactly what he said to me. Let me tell you something, brother. He says, in my life, people have constantly are bringing up three things in my life. He goes, one is when I slam that giant. Two is when I put that no good warrior over. And he goes, the third thing, he's like, these wrestling buddies, brother. He's like, they're still bringing them to me. He's like, I'm still signing them. It's like 30 years later. He's like, we got to bring him back. I was like, that's what I'm saying, Hogan. He's like, that's what I'm saying. I was like, we got to bring him back. So I was on the phone with him for about 15 minutes, and he was extremely gracious, very, very nice. And I should have brought this up to him when I was a kid. You guys, you definitely don't remember this, but in the early 80s, they had the WWF. One of the first things that they did to, like, you know, really squeeze as much juice out of the WWF as they can, they started a 1-900 number. Do you guys know what 1-900 numbers are?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So there was two purposes for one. Well, really one purpose for 1-900, but they were sex lines, right? Like they were all these, like, you know, you would call and you get charged like $4 a minute to talk to some girl on the other line that would basically have phone sex with you, right? So, but the WWE thought the WWF thought it'd be a good idea to do this too. But instead of women, it would be your favorite wrestlers on a recorded tape, giving storylines or whatever. And so I thought as a kid, if I called, I'd get to speak to one of my favorite wrestlers. Nope. It was JYD or it was whoever, or Hillbilly Jim or whoever it was, just on the other line, like, hey, kids, like, remember to get your parents' permission before going on the line, right? Like, and of course I didn't. I just picked up the line and called the number, right? So, funny story. Turns out I racked up like a $300 bill on these WWF 900 numbers. And obviously, clearly, I never got to speak to any of my favorite wrestlers. It was all recorded. And one day I hear my mother yelling and screaming at my father. So, what's this $300 phone bill, 900 numbers? Are you calling?
Your poor dad.
She thought it was my father. And then they come to you calling any of these 900 numbers? Wasn't me. Really funny. So, I mean, how funny is it that quite literally, I had to wait 30 plus years, but I ultimately got my phone call with Hulk Hogan, my 100%. Favorite wrestler of all time.
That's something I'll never forget, man.
I'll never forget that. That was really, really a cool moment for me. And ultimately we did get to do the Hulk Hogan Wrestling Buddies, or Big Shots, as we call them, for Hulk Hogan. And it was an exclusive. We had an agreement that we would only make them for him, and he could only sell them at his beach shop. We did 3 different styles, Hulkamania T-shirt, Hulk Rules, and NWO Hollywood Hogan, and we made 40. That's it. We made 40 of each style. So there was only 120 in rotation at that particular time. And it was a really cool experience to get to work with the Hulkster. And the cool thing is, he never personally announced that they were on sale, but the internet being the internet, it leaked online that they had them in stock, and they sold out at his beach shop in 24 hours.
Wow, that's
which is really, really, really cool. So yeah, man, that was our first foray into working with wrestlers, and then I had another guy reach out to me that wanted to do some Ric Flair stuff. We worked with Ric Flair, so we did a Ric Flair, and we did a Mike Tyson, and Jay and Silent Bob reached out to us. They want to do. We did one of them, and again, I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. Yeah. I've been to his podcasts live, and I've met Kevin previously, and so I was just like, oh my god, I'm getting to work with all of my heroes, which was just really, really cool. And then the British Bulldog's daughter reached out to me to do a British Bulldog, and so we did some really, really cool pieces, and then come full circle, 3 years cameo. 3 years later, we ended up finally getting our WWE license, our holy grail, if you will, because of persistence and great relationships that we continued to forge over with the folks at WWE, and not to be remiss, but also our relationships with Fanatics, right? Because we supported them on the UFC side of things. Again, just do great work, right? And that's what we did. We supported.
Let your work speak for itself, right?
Quite literally, and you got to support the partners that no pun intended you're in bed with. Right, so we supported Fanatics, whatever they needed. We were happy to oblige. One of the things that they asked for, Joe, was an Ultiman, and so we were happy to do an Ultiman. And UFC, believe it or not, was not really thrilled with the idea of not doing a hands up Ultiman, because as we know, the Ultiman's always hands up. We're like, arms down. Right? That's the buddy shape, right?
That's the iconic buddy.
Yeah, I said, listen, it's the form factor. I know there have been other buddies out there that do this or this or whatever it may be. There's been many iterations of the buddies, but we feel the form factor in its original form factor is, in our opinion, the best. And we think it lends to the best, I guess, what do they call it in the industry, the best play pattern. And also too, it fits into a bag nicely that way. If the arms are up, it's going to be a pain in the ass.
Yep.
So the form factor, we wanted to keep it true to its original form. So that way, Joe, in your case, it's perfect because do you have a daughter or a son?
I have a son.
Perfect, right? So for your son, you get to quite literally hand down or purchase a new, big shot in our case, that is quite literally the same play pattern that you had that when you were a kid. Is it modernized? Yes, of course. It's funny, Dylan, could you hold up the old
and the new? You want the old and the new?
Oh, the original buddy.
The original buddy's right here, yeah.
There you go. Now, once again, Stephanie, for the time, absolutely crushed it, right? But in today's day and age, if we just kind of ran back with this artwork, it wouldn't have. We wanted to create something a little more edge, right? A little bit more of an attitude, right? So that way, not only will it appeal to kids, but it'll also appeal to the collectors out there and the people that really enjoy this stuff, right? The older kids, if you will, as I like to call them, right? The guys that have the man caves. So this will be a really nice addition to the man cave, right? You could have your favorite, faction, if you will, kind of lined up on your couch, and it's not going to look childish, if you will. To some people, maybe, but to others, they're fun.
Yeah, I love the way that you've modernized things.
Yeah.
I love that they're hypoallergenic. I love that they're machine washable, and I have to say they feel heavier than 1.5 pounds.
They definitely are. They are. You busted us. You busted us.
So,
yeah, they were
exclusive.
That was the original language that we just never changed. But yeah, we should update that. Thank you for bringing that up, Dylan. Yeah, they are. You know what it is? I always tell my guys, I at the factory, I'm like, you guys are putting too much stuffing into these things, and then they go, well, because the reality is, like, sometimes if you don't fill it out, what happens is you get these creases in them. And so we like the product to look quite like the product images, right? So we always want our product to have the best representation that we can at the end of the day, we want to put out the best quality product we possibly can. And if it requires an additional pound of fill, we're happy to apply.
I have to say, even the smaller ones,
yeah,
head of the table here.
There you go.
Very full, very solid. I was so impressed.
That's the 7-inch, right?
That's the 7-inch, and that is the 22-inch.
That one's actually for my son for Christmas that Dylan got. So
yeah,
he's 3 years old, and Cody is his favorite wrestler. And
oh my God, he's gonna lose his mind.
He's gonna lose his mind. I can only imagine the wrestling matches that the three of us are gonna have.
And
when Dylan comes over, it's gonna turn into a fatal 4-way. So
I'll bring my whoa.
Yeah, no, that's great. And once again, like, this is what I love to hear. We're helping, create memories for kids and their parents alike, and memories that these kids will go on just like what we had when we were kids, and we remember. It's just so cool to be quite literally blessed. That's the only word I could come up with. To be the one to be blessed enough to be the person that brings this back into pop culture. And again, I'm not saying I'm the only one. I know there are others out there that have created buddies, but if I don't mind saying so myself, I think we put out the best product since the originals.
And I want to echo that, Adam. We were actually saying that before you logged in. Not just because we were having you on the program tonight, but because the original buddies mean so much to us. Yeah. And we are particular about things like the artwork and the feel and that cartoony yet realism at the same time. I honestly think that you guys captured that essence and the tradition of the original better than anybody else, because when I look at Dylan hold up that Cody, or I go on your website and I think about, damn, which one do I need to buy now? I look at them and they're like, man, it's bringing me back to the early 90s.
Yeah.
And being able to then pass that on to my son at Christmas time, just around the corner, that's one of those moments that I can't wait to experience with my kid. And you know, I look at this podcast and I look at my friendship with Dylan. Wrestling is that constant. It's what brought us together. It's something that we've been fans of since like you said, since we were children. And during the pandemic years, that's how I got to know Joe and Mike and Vinny and Jay on the podcast. And that's how I got swept into this this world. So being able to have you on the show and you share your insights and your art and bring us back to 1990, man, it's awesome. And I truly think that you captured that feeling that we have always kind of wish we had in 2024. And I think you did that better than anybody else, man.
Wow, Matt, that's a tremendous compliment. It means not only a lot to me, but I'm sure to the rest of my team, because we quite literally kill ourselves. I'm serious. Like, we lose sleep over like the smallest little, or at least I do. Like, you know, like Nolan and I literally go back and forth about the smallest little intricate detail on every design. The way the eyes look, the way the mouth is, like, what we're doing, mouth open, mouth closed, teeth, no teeth, like tongue out, tongue in, like quite literally every single detail. And as you guys know, how many freaking outfits and you know, how much ring gear these guys wear. What ring gear are we going to put them in? Right? Like, what? Right? Exactly. Right? We kill ourselves over every little detail. You know, Nolan, thank God, because he's just so ingrained in this world. His instincts, I always trust his instincts. But again, we pine over everything, right? Like, you know, a perfect example is Roman Reigns, right? If you bring him back up on the screen, you know, my original thing was like, I feel like he looks like, you know, angry or whatever. Hold on one second. My puppy is crying because he wants to go out. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, buddy. There he is. So yeah, so for Roman Reigns' mouth, I want his mouth to be open or screaming. I just feel like the face isn't dynamic enough, right? And so Nolan's feedback was, but yeah, he's a stoic character, and his mouth is, you know, he's not an expressive type of guy. He always has this kind of cowl, you know, this kind of, you know, pensive look. And I go, I get that. I get that. So if you go to our website and you check out our OTC variant,
I was just on there looking.
That's kind of how the OTC variant came about, because I was like, well, let's just see what the mouth open looks like, right? Because I feel like that'll be fun. And it was around the time that he had just came back. So I said, or Nolan suggested, let's put him in an OTC t-shirt.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Brilliant.
And so that's what's cool about that is, and you're going to start to see us kind of do this. See, we plan on doing a lot more cool things than, because again, the culture, the timing of the 80s is so different than it is now. Our plan is to create moments with our big shots, right? To capitalize on moments, especially within the wrestling storyline. So you're going to see, we're going to drop exclusive big shots that are only available for a certain period of time, and then that's it, they're gone, right? So the OTC is a perfect example. January 1, he'll be gone, right? That'll be it for OTC. And if you got him, and it's special, and maybe the value goes up, and that's how that works. And then
Joey, buy it right now. Joey, buy it right now. Don't even second guess.
I was at SummerSlam when he came back with OTC.
Kidding, bro.
But what I'm looking at the UFC one, what I loved was the variant of the Poatan and Max Holloway, the UFC 300 shorts.
Joey gets
perfect.
So a perfect example of that is, I can't remember who hit me up today about it, but they sent me a picture of our original Connor, the original Connor that we originally released. And the original Connor didn't have the Venom shorts. It was just green, solid green shorts. And I go, bro, you got an OG. Like, that's That's our first Conor McGregor we ever dropped. So it's a collector's item. And, hold on to that, so because we've done 3 different variants of Conor now. We've done the Venom shorts. We've done him in the suit, the purple suit. And then we've also done one of him in his shorts that he was supposed to wear for UFC 300. Was it 300 or 303?
303.
Yeah, 303. But he did not come. He didn't fight. So that's an unreleased variant that hopefully we'll get to release one day when he does fight again. So
you guys heard it first.
Right.
You got the audience heard it first here on PTM.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's in the can. It's done. We just can't release it because he hasn't debuted those special shorts yet. So again, and getting back to Max Holloway, our original Max Holloway was a different looking Max Holloway. I think we changed the facial expression. We put him in the Hawaiian print shorts, and we put the BMF belt on him because he won the BMF belt. So anytime something happens, so a perfect example of that is Cody. The WWE doesn't like to put belts on their toys that you can't remove. So that was a big deal for us to get that. So Cody, we said, well, what if we made a special edition Cody where, it's a WrestleMania moment Cody. So that's what that Cody is. And so that Cody will eventually be replaced by another Cody.
I look at it and like I said, my son is a huge Cody fan, and we watched WrestleMania together, and he is. I know how excited he's going to be when he receives this for Christmas. So, it's going to be one of those experiences that I remember for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
Will there be like a variant like Bret Hart WrestleMania 9 big shot gear?
I will plead the fifth. What I will say is we do have a Bret Hart variant coming soon.
Oh, you as a Canadian, and I know Dylan can speak to this. You don't know how happy that makes me.
Yeah, and so Bret is another great guy that prior to our WWE license, we had a chance to work with personally, and he's just been so accommodating and so awesome. It's been really cool to continue to work with those guys. I mean, super nice family, great family.
That's great.
And believe it or not, I'm not sure if you know about this about Dylan. You may know this, but
Yep.
Bret is a fellow artist. He likes to draw cartoons himself.
I have his whiskey, his signature whiskey that it comes with his hand drawn art, and
it's so
one of my
fucking
collector
cool.
pieces. Yeah,
He
I
does
love
some
that.
very dirty cartoons as well, actually.
I'm sure he does.
He used to draw orgies on the blackboard at every WWE event, and Andre the Giant loved them. And I heard that story just this year.
That's funny, bro.
Even like his artwork, like in his book autobiography, like is amazing. Like
Yeah, he's an incredible artist. It kind of reminds me of H.R. Crumb. Like it's very like
it does.
you know,
Very underground. Very
Love it. I love it. I love it.
Next.
Yeah, and I believe he's going to be working on something. I've been chatting with them about it, and so we'll see. So stay tuned for some Bret Hart art. If you
and you're dropping all the heat.
Wow.
Holy.
Am I dropping heat? I mean, look, we'll see. It's something that I know he's been knocking around. So we'll see what happens. But they are incredible people, and they've been an absolute pleasure to work with, and so accommodating. And Bret is a big fan of what we've been doing as well. Matter of fact, I owe him a care package of some of the wrestlers because he asked to basically create. Could you imagine like Bret's gonna like collect our big shots? Like what?
That's
like
awesome.
it's just so meta and weird. It's like
Giant Andre, 32 inches.
32-inch one.
yeah, dude. That was when we got the license for Andre. I said, we have to do a 32-inch Andre. I mean, granted, we've only sold a few, but because I forgot what do we have it priced at?
$59.99 US.
No.
The
Oh,
Andre.
sorry. 32? 159. 159.
Yeah, it's steep. But I gotta say, it is worth it to have a chance to slam the giant like that.
How
like,
much does that one weigh? Do you know?
And for our Canadian fans,
10
it's
pounds.
Yeah.
26.
Yeah, it's gotta weigh probably 6 to 7 pounds. I would say it's
A big boy.
It is big. I had to get special shipping bags that like I had to like go to the ends of the earth to find, so I could find shipping bags big enough to ship them in. But Cardona has one.
Yeah.
He loves it. He loves it.
Because I was so tempted, and then I showed my girlfriend, and the anger in her face when I showed it to her, and I was like, "Oh, look, we could get this too," and she was like,
Listen, like I said, it's been just such an absolute blessing to like quite literally have the keys to so many millions of wrestling fans' youth. And it's not something we take lightly at all. It is something that, you know, we treat, you know, very gingerly, and we tread very lightly, because we know every detail of every product that we release is going to be scrutinized by some of the toughest fans in the world. And when they don't like something, they're fucking brutal. I've seen it. I've seen Mattel, like, you know, huge toy companies just get eviscerated for head sculpts or missteps that they take. And I just don't want to be on the other end of that. So I think a lot of it, we operate in fear. But in the most, not fear, but once again, we know the products that will be scrutinized, and it means as much to us as it does to everybody who purchases. So, you know, we stand behind our product quite literally.
I have to say, as a fan, that I love the 22-inch releases the most, because you get to scrutinize that artwork. You get to look at every line, all the little details. So it works out in the end, you know?
Yeah, 1,000%.
And it's just amazing.
It's so funny. Like, when we first got going with UFC, we only had one size. I didn't think anybody else would want another size, right? But I go, okay, if I want these sold at a venue, 22 inches pretty hard to get sold for. You know what I mean? Like, how many could they possibly carry if I'm gonna, you know?
You're sitting at your seats and you've got a 20.
It's just too cumbersome. So we said, what if we just came up with a smaller version that we could basically, our original idea was, we'll just sell it to fanatics that they could sell in venue, right? And so that's what we created. And we said, hey, like, because they were like, we're not buying a 22. It's just, we can't. Where we're gonna keep? We could. Their thought process is, for every 22-inch big shot, we could have 50 T-shirts in a box, right? Versus, it just doesn't make sense. Every inch of real estate means the world to them when they're packing and going to the next show and so on and so forth. So, you know, even the 16-inch is still pretty big, especially for kids. But it ended up being that our 16-inch option, if you're a collector, right? And in my office, I went and I got these really cool like shelves. You may have seen it. I have it on my Instagram. I got these cool like shelves that fit the big shots 3 to a shelf perfectly when it's the 16 inches. And I have a whole wall of big shots, and like the 16-inch, and it's just visually just so freaking cool. The 22 inches are just amazing for the retro people, like the people that want to continue to build on their Tonka collection or their other collection that, you know, the other buddies that have been made. But if you're starting from scratch, or if you want to create a big shots wall, the 16 inches are the way to go. Because, you know, A, they're cheaper. B, they present a lot nicer. They stand up, no problem. And they look great. They look great on a shelf. So we have names for every size. The mini obviously is the mini. We call the 16-inch option the collector option, and we call the 22-inch the retro size. So that's kind of how we're running with it. The mini was something that I always wanted to do, but when I was originally working with the manufacturer, they were like, "Oh, we can't. How are we going to stuff that? It's too hard to stuff because the arms, the diameter of the arm is pretty small, right?" And at the time, they were hand stuffing all of our pillows. I was like, well, you guys just don't have the right equipment. So now I have my own factory, and now we're making minis. And I'm stoked on them because people are loving them. And the uses that everybody comes up with on the mini, everybody has like a different use for a mini. Somebody said something, I can't remember what they said to me the other day, but it was like, I was like, I never even thought of that. Like, so it's always like people are coming to me with these ideas. Like somebody's like, oh, I'm doing my entire Christmas tree with them. Like it's Christmas.
That's incredible.
I'm like, oh, that's great. They're gonna have a WWE Christmas tree, with all the WWE big shots. I was like, that's perfect. Because like, a lot of these things are toys themselves that are on Christmas trees. So I thought that was great. And obviously you could use them as a luggage tag, a backpack dangler. Oh, like that. I know she said she's gonna put it in her rear view mirror. I wouldn't advise that, but listen. Again, everybody has a different use for it. And I'm just so happy that people are responded to. Everybody has their own specific size that they like, and I think it's great. It's really cool.
You guys just dropped the final boss and the new Hogan variant, right? That pre-order ship out on December 5th.
December 5th, Hogan and Rock will be shipped December 5th. There he is, the final boss. I love that one. This was so much fun making this, and and again, like once again, we go crazy over how it should look. And a funny story on this one was originally he did not have the sunglasses. And I was like, I feel like he needs, oh no, I take it back. He did have the sunglasses, but the eyes were completely blacked out. So you did not see the eyes. And I said to Nolan, I go, you're losing the likeness without having these glasses on. And I said, what if we move the glasses down a little bit, have the eyebrow so you can see the eyebrow, and then make the eyeglasses transparent so you can still see the eyes. Right? So that way,
man. That's incredible.
So that way you could still see the likeness because, as they say, the eyes are the window into the soul. And, Nolan with his artwork captures every essence of it. And I just didn't want to lose any of that detail. And so I said, and he drew the eyes. I said, why would you draw the eyes if you can't see them? so I said, it's just funny. I think he was toying with the idea of 86ing the glasses. So we did. There was an original variant with no sunglasses. And so we went back and forth on every little detail of every product is a story too. And I keep saying like, we should have a YouTube channel and capture all this stuff because we have calls just like this and we go over it and we get on the phone and we talk about all these details.
There's a story behind every big shot, and you could probably have a catalog of so many different tales for each individual piece. It's
very, very rare that it just comes out of the chute and it's approved and it's done. It's just, it does it happen? Yes. And it just happened with one of my favorite wrestlers. I'll give you a hint. He's a legend. And he's going to be released, I guess, maybe tomorrow.
Oof.
Oh.
Yeah. This is a big one.
Is it? Are we supposed to guess?
I'll tell you what. I'll give you an exclusive right now. You got 3 guesses. Each one of you have 1 guess. If you nail it, I'll say yes.
Okay, I'm going last.
Okay.
I'm going to cheat like that. Yeah.
All right. Joe?
Hold on, let me go.
I'm
going to say Ultimate Warrior.
No, that's not who I was thinking.
I'm going to say Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Cue the shattering glass.
Oh, there we go.
Holy
wow. Again, another first here on Pounding the Meat. You heard it.
Jesus, it just makes me uncomfortable.
That's what we aim to do on this show. That's awesome.
Now I get to say I was going to guess that, and you never know if I'm telling the truth. That's the genius of going last.
Solid guess. Yeah, tomorrow we're dropping the rattlesnake himself, Stone Cold Steve Austin. What? Yeah, it'll be a fun release. And by the way, I say this about every Big Shot, but this is my new favorite Big Shot.
Whoa.
I say it with every drop. I go, no, this is my new favorite. But this one is just so goddamn good. It is so good.
I can't wait to see how
he's got the vest on.
Yeah.
It is.
We'll have to wait. We'll have to wait a few hours.
Yeah, we'll have to wait a bit.
It is so good. It is so good, and I'm sure you guys.
It could be T-shirt. Like, there's.
No, you'll see. You'll see. I give you enough, all right, guys.
There's big options.
Yeah. Listen, like I said, the cool thing about
that's exciting.
The cool thing about us is we're quite literally for fans by fans. Like, we're fucking fans. Like, this is not, like, we're not a huge corporate entity like that is just like, all right, how can we squeeze these wrestling fans? How can we squeeze these marks for every dollar they got? Like, that's not it. Like, the truth of the matter is, like, do we make money? Like, yeah, sure. But every dollar goes right back into the business. It's truly a labor of love right now. Would it be nice to make money? Yes, of course. It'd be great. Obviously to keep the thing going and, but, truly right now, we are a startup in every sense of the word. And, we're having a lot of fun with what we're doing. And we just want to keep this thing going and, take this thing to the heights really, truly that this product deserves. And, we have a lot of great ideas to continue to build on the brand and the form factor. And with everybody's, support and everybody's love for what we're doing, if we could continue on that trend and continue to pick up more fans and collectors, then by God, let's see where we could take this thing.
Absolutely. Hearing your story from the very beginning and you selling to your classmates to make and it wasn't about the money, like you said, it was the experience and being able to give to them, and then taking that idea from when you were so young and then just running with it and yeah, you had the support along the way, which I think is such an important factor. And a lot of kids maybe don't always have that, but so long as they have maybe one caring adult that believes in them, that will certainly help to elevate them. And it was great that you were able to share that story about your dad being that person for you, and all these different experiences that you've gone through from the very beginning and how it all comes full circle. There are a lot of moments tonight that have come full circle with the stories that you've shared. And I'm excited to see not only the release that you just dropped a moment ago, but I'm excited to see what the future of Big Shots is going to look like. And you might have these ideas now, and sometimes those ideas might change, and sometimes you might grow on them. But I think everything that you guys are doing right now, it's working, and people love the art that you are putting out there. And it's not just a throwback for people like us that recall those nostalgic years of wrestling, but those new experiences for kids like my son or like Joey's boy that will be able to have these pillows that they're going to be able to beat up like we did when we were kids, and then us as parents have those experiences. That's what it's all about. Yes, the money is a factor, of course it is, and with any business, that's how the business keeps going, and that's how we can enjoy some of the finer things in life. But it's so much more than that.
And here's the crazy part. As much fun as your son is going to have with his Cody Rhodes WWE Big Shot, you are going to have so much enjoyment out of watching him play with his WWE Big Shot, because it's going to take you right back, and you're going to see so much of yourself in your son. And it's just going to just the excitement and joy that it's going to bring to him. It's going to be 10x for you.
Yeah, 100%. That's what it's all about, man. And yeah, for you to be able to kind of give that experience to the world, I think we're blessed. We're blessed that you are able to share your ideas and have them come to fruition. And we're blessed that you were able to come on tonight and share your life and your life experiences with us and everyone who's still watching at 12 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time, and for everyone who's going to be tuning in tomorrow, because we have a lot of fans that are international, a lot of UK guys that couldn't stay up late for this, but I know they'll be watching when they wake up. So.
UK friends who have stayed up for this, who are watching now. So shout out to them, and
shout out across the pond for sure.
Yeah, and I have to say thank you as well. Like amazing. I actually had a list of questions, and you covered all of them.
Oh wow!
Amazing stories. So perfect. Wow. The only one that was not covered, which is not for the zine, but it's actually for my girlfriend, is because she loves the Bruce Buffer that talks.
Yeah,
and she's like, are any of them going to talk from WWE? And I was like, I'll ask. And she's like, make sure you ask.
It's on the table. I'll say that.
It's on the table.
Right now, just like with Bruce Buffer, like you got to wait for the right one.
Yeah.
You got to wait for the right one. Like if you threw a voice box into every single one of them, it's just not special anymore. And, the answer is yes, it's on the table. Eventually, I'm sure we will get a whack and yak WWE big shot at one point.
So cool to hear. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, okay, listen, guys, this was so cool. I didn't expect this. Dylan, thank you for reaching out. Thanks for supporting us early on. It means a tremendous amount. Joey, it's a pleasure to meet a fellow UFC fan, and a great conversation. Matt, you're doing the thing. Keep beating the meat. We really appreciate that. Once again, you guys said some really incredible, nice things and encouraging things, and it's honestly because of guys like you that it keeps me going. Because trust me, I have plenty of days where I wake up and go, "The fuck am I doing?" We all do. We all second guess, but no, seriously. When I get to have conversations like this and their reassurance that I'm heading in the right direction, it means the world to me. So and all of us that work on the brand, by no means is it just me. I mean, I have an incredible team behind me, from factory workers to partners and investors, and obviously Nolan and artists, graphic designers, marketers. The list goes on and on. I'm surrounded by an incredible team, and if it wasn't for guys like you, it wouldn't be possible. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Adam, to have you on tonight, and if time permits, man, we'd love to have you back.
Absolutely.
See what happens next with Big Shots and everything else that you guys have planned, and we heard a few exclusives drop tonight, and I can't wait to see what is next for Big Shots moving forward.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to have a new UFC Classic Championship belt pillow in my future.
I got one in the back. You don't know if you can see it.
I saw it on the couch. I was looking at it.
I'm like screwed up here. There you go. There it is.
There it is.
So
that's amazing.
All right, guys. Thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Soon.
On behalf of Pounding the Meat, we want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight. And we're going to have to do this again sometime. This is a lot of fun. So thank you, Adam. Thank you, Dylan. Great having you on the show, man.
Last thing, I guess I should plug the site real quick. For those who don't know, you can check us out on Instagram at Get Big Shots, or Twitter, X, at Get Big Shots. If you want to check out our website, getbigshots.com. And if you want to check out Big League Pillows, that's bigleaguepillows.com.
We are going to put those links in the description below on our YouTube channel for those who are watching, and they'll be able to find those your websites and order all of their favorite Big Shots. Joey and I, we do this for fun. We do it because we love it. This is something that we're passionate about, and as you know, Adam, with how busy your schedule is and how so many of our schedules are with families, it's hard to be able to do this sometimes, and we're not able to go on every single week. But when we do, and when we have special guests like yourself and like my good friend Dylan, it's also reassuring for us. This is why we do what we do. to be able to have these kinds of conversations and get the word out there, and just bring all of us together. And wrestling is that constant, and just being able to hear your experiences tonight. Dylan's Old-Timey Wrestling Zine that is in the works and will be out soon. This is why we do what we do. And so without further ado, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Have a good night.
See you guys.